How do you do? I am Andre Dixon, your director for this month.
All right. Good effect.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Riverside Township Auditorium. First program tonight, our Halloween show, will be Lights Out. A series called Lights Out, and the show will be Death Robbery. It was originally done July 16th, 1947. Lights Out. Oh. Lights Out debuted in 1934 and was radio's premier horror series created by writer-director Willis Cooper. Lights Out truly set the bar high for other radio dramas in the 1930s. It's amazing how hard it gets to breathe when you get behind a microphone. Due to its gore and strangeness, it was different than anything else on the radio. It was one of the first old-time radio shows that developed the use of distinct sound effects that were intended to be heard. Adhesive tape stuck together and pulled apart simulated the sound of a man's or woman's skin being ripped off. Pulling the leg off a frozen chicken gave the illusion of an arm being torn out of its socket. A raw egg dropped on a plate stood in for an eye being gouged. Poured corn syrup stood in for flowing blood. Cleavered cabbages and cantaloupes stood in for beheadings. Snapped pencils and spare ribs were broken bones and fingers. The sound of a hand crushed, a lemon laid on its anvil, smashed by a hammer. Tonight's show is Death Robbery, broadcast on July 16, 1947. I will leave you now to our announcer.
Lights out. It clicks.
It clicks. What clicks?
The Eversharp Schick injector razor made by Eversharp, manufacturers of Eversharp Schick injector razors and blades, and famous Eversharp precision writing instruments. Hideous things come out of the darkness to prowl the tortured earth. Evil hands stretch forth to seize, evil eyes are watching. Unholy voices whisper and quarrel in the fearful silence. Death stalks, loathsome, horrible death. Dare you put out your lights and listen to Boris Karloff in a story of horror in the deepening darkness? Dare you listen to Lights Out?
I'm glad you brought up the question of ethics, Ed. Sometimes I think science is too ethical, stands in the way of research.
I don't know, David. Take your work, for example. It's wonderful, but you have to be very cautious. I think working with monkeys is about as far as you should go right now.
Oh, but Ed, David is past that stage. Why not show Ed the one you worked on today, darling?
If you'd like to see it, Ed, it's right in the lab.
Yes, I would. I saw it last night after you injected the formula.
I'll get it, David.
Thank you, dear. It's in the second cake.
Ruth's a wonderful girl, David. Must be a big help to you in your work.
Don't know what I'd do without her. But if she ever gets too interested in pure science, I'm gonna lock her out of the lab and just make her go back to being a wife.
How do you find time for a wife?
Now look here. All you practicing surgeons think the research man is a machine. Not me, Ed. Ruth means more to me than all the discoveries I might make. Her happiness is all I live and work for.
Well, I can't say that I blame you. She's a very charming person.
Here it is.
Same one you saw last night, Ed. Stone dead. And there he is, just as healthy and alive as any other monkey.
Why, it's amazing, David. Naturally, I've followed all the experiments along this line, but you seem to have progressed much farther.
David can't go any further with animals. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
Well, I'm all for research, David, but you have a moral obligation in this sort of thing. How do you know it'll work with human beings?
Oh ho, you're a surgeon yourself, Ed. You know that human beings are animals just like all the subjects I've used. I know it will work.
Well, knowing it won't get you far with society. You have to submit proof.
I know that. And I've tried every way I can think of to get a human being to demonstrate on.
He's tried insane asylums, penitentiaries, everywhere.
No one will listen to me.
Well, in a way, you can't blame them. Even to me, with my training, the idea seems, well, blasphemous.
My dear Ed, you can't stop scientific progress because of a so-called moral concept.
Besides, what could be less blasphemous than to triumph over death?
I'm sorry, but I can't see it that way. And I wouldn't want it tried on me. When I'm dead, I want to stay dead.
Oh, that's foolish, Ed. Why, if I die first, I want David to see me and to use me for a subject.
Ruth!
Don't look so startled, Ed. She's always been my strongest supporter. But I'm not going to use her as a subject. I like her too well as a wife.
Still, it gives me shivers to hear you talk that way, Ruth.
But why? I've seen David's work grow to where the technique is perfect. Before long, his experiments will be recognized by the whole medical world. And if I can help him achieve that goal, I'm willing to do anything, living or dead. I mean it.
She said she wanted to do it, Ed, living or dead.
David, you're surely not going to hold her to that. Not now.
Of course I am.
But
she meant it. Well, I called you over here tonight, Ed, because I need help.
Don't tell me that.
Dad, I want you to help me bring to bring her here. That's exactly what I mean.
David.
Will you help me, or must I bribe some stranger?
David, why don't you give this thing up? It's inhuman.
Ed, if I succeed, I'll have Ruth back. Don't you see how much it means?
Well, yes, if you're successful.
Oh, I've no doubt about that. Look, I've got my laboratory records. 714 times I've performed the experiment on guinea pigs, rabbits, monkeys. 714 times it's been successful. Don't you see?
But David, this is no laboratory experiment. Ruth was your wife.
She is my wife, the only woman I've ever loved. That's why I want to bring her back here and start her breathing and living again.
There's an ugly name for what you're asking me to do, David.
I know, grave robbery. But there's a better name for it, Ed. Death robbery. We'll rob old man Death. Kick the door shut. There, on the operating table.
I must say you're completely equipped.
It's surgery just as well as a lab. Everything we need is here.
There. Well, it's done.
Not yet.
You mean you want me to stay?
Ed, listen, ever since Ruth, well, I guess I've leaned on you for everything. I won't ask you to stay, but I do need you just a little longer.
Oh, all right, David. I'll stay.
Well, Ruth will be the first to thank you when we succeed.
David, I'll always doubt this until I see Ruth living, breathing, smiling again.
It won't be long, just a matter of 15 or 20 minutes.
If nothing happens, what will you do if your operation doesn't work?
Then you'll have just one more job to do as my friend.
And that?
Would be to bury both of us.
Oh, now look, David.
If Ruth isn't alive within a few minutes, I'll have lost her forever, and I'll have proved that my whole life's work is useless. I'll have reason enough to use any of a dozen tricks that any good surgeon knows to end the whole business. No, oh, but don't look so horrified, Ed. We won't fail. Let's begin.
I should remind you once more, David, that your usurping powers that belong to God Almighty.
I like to think that Providence has wisely held back the knowledge of things like this until we knew how to use them. And I know how. Hand me that large beaker.
All right. I'm not going to back out on you, David. What shall I do?
Do? You'll work as you haven't worked in surgery before. Thank heaven I've got your skill on my side. Now then, first strap this sphygmomanometer on her arm.
I just happened to think of something.
Keep moving. This is all a matter of timing.
But David...
Here are your instruments. I want the incision right here where I'm shaving the hair. Make a small incision just at the fontanelle while I prepare the solution.
David, have you considered...
Please work fast.
But Dave...
What?
She was embalmed, you know.
Of course I know that. I've something to replace the blood and counteract the fluid.
It's ghastly.
Finish the cut. I know what I'm doing.
Well, that's all for the incision, but after all...
Good work. Nice. Now cut away the dura mater entirely.
Leave the brain exposed?
Yes, I'll fix that. I've done it 700-odd times.
This is no guinea pig or monkey.
Well, I hardly need reminding.
Sorry. What's that?
A compound I've synthesized myself.
What is it?
I call it digamma-paradiamine. Oh, I know that isn't chemically correct, but it's as close as I can get to it. I knew that something like it must exist. Took 3 years to track it down. Took me that long to make the first drop of it.
You know what you're doing, all right.
Yes, I do. Now then, if you're finished, take the leads from that storage battery there and attach the positive to the silver plate on the shelf. Put that at her feet.
I feel as if I were doing something unholy.
Place the tip of the negative in the incision you made in the skull. Be sure the tip of the wire actually penetrates the pia mater.
David, what if you bring her back?
I will bring her back.
But what if you bring her back and find that she comes back without her soul.
What? Her soul?
Yes.
You're a surgeon, and you believe in a soul?
Well, I hesitate to say there is no such thing.
You've seen a good many deaths, haven't you? Have you ever seen any evidence that the soul escapes at death?
Perhaps I couldn't recognize the evidence.
Put it this way, then. If there is any soul, it either leaves the body or stays with it at death. Now, no reputable surgeon or physician has ever been able to report the slightest evidence of the soul's having left the body. So the soul, if there is a soul, has stayed with the body, a part of it. I'm ready now if you've finished.
Everything's set.
Good. Close that switch then at the battery. Watch the meter and keep the current between plus and minus 5/150. There's a rheostat on the edge of the table, all right?
All right.
Now I'm going to inject 10 cc's of adrenaline in the brachial artery.
Adrenaline?
Adrenaline and something else. There. God, she's beautiful, Ed.
Yes, she was.
She is. You'll see her in a few minutes just as she was.
I wonder what she'll have to tell us.
Nothing. Death is only a transcendental sleep.
Do you really believe that, David?
Oh, well, what's the difference? How's the current?
Let's see. Why, it's jumped up to 180.
Good. Bring it back to 150. That's the result of the injection.
On a dead body?
Oh, let's say suspended animation. There are still a few things in surgery you don't know, Doctor.
I never dreamed of a reaction like that.
I'll show you more. Help me swing this lamp over here.
But-
let the ammeter go. It'll hold steady for a minute.
But it might jump again.
No, it won't. I've been all through this before. The reactions are exactly the same as the others.
And this lamp? X-rays?
No, it's a modification of the cathode ray. Just another of my developments. I call these a theta rays.
Why do you call them that?
Oh, most rays are named for the first few letters in the Greek alphabet. Alpha, beta, gamma, and so on.
Well, that explains theta. Did you say a theta?
Yes, but theta was called the letter of death by the ancient Greeks.
Well, that's right. If it was the first letter in their word thanatos, death. Oh, I see. A theta, without death.
Maybe I was too sentimental.
Maybe. At least human for once.
Let's not argue. Here goes the ray. Now quickly, the solution.
Injected?
No, pump it. I built this pump especially for it. There's the pump switch, Ed.
Here?
Yeah, turn it on and watch the ammeter.
Okay. It's jumping.
How far?
155.
Let it go.
160. 170.
Hold it there. It'll stay there now. Listen carefully.
Yes?
Soon as I turn off the pump, I want sphygmo readings.
There won't be any blood pressure.
Wait and see. Give me a reading each time I ask for it, and then take them carefully. Ready?
This is fantastic. I'm ready.
Okay. Reading?
Systolic 0. Diastolic 0.
That's all right. It will take a few seconds. Now.
40. My God.
Diastolic? Hurry.
0.
Aortic valve is still open. I'll turn off the ray. Reading?
48. Over 45. David!
Not yet. Now, the stopwatch. 7 seconds after I say go, I want the systolic. Now, you have it?
Right.
Ready? Now, go.
60.
Good. That's what it should be. Lord, look at my hands.
I don't want to.
Ruth, darling, just a few more minutes. All right, Ed. Now the ray again. We'll know the answer very soon.
The second act of Lights Out, starring Boris Karloff, will follow in just a moment. But now, listen to the sweetest shaving song ever written. Push, pull, click, click. Changes blades that quick. Push, pull, click, click. With the Eversharp Schick Injector Razor. Yes, it clicks for men everywhere, because the Eversharp Schick Injector Razor is the world's one and only razor with automatic blade changer. No blades to unwrap, fingers never touch the blade. Just pull, push-pull, click-click. And a keen new blade is automatically locked in the correct shaving position instantly. It clicks because the Eversharp Schick Injector Razor makes shaving 50% faster, 100% safer, 200% smoother. Just try the Eversharp Schick Injector Razor for 1 week. See for yourself the difference. It's a $1.75 value. Special now for only $1.25. Complete with 20 blades. For the shave of your life, for the rest of your life. Switch to an Eversharp Schick Injector Razor. Get yours tomorrow. Push, pull, click, click. Buy an Eversharp Schick.
How long do you use the ray this time, David?
Not long. Give me a reading.
68. Over 70, 50, or 67.
Now?
70.
Diastolic?
68.
Now?
David, 118. 76.
Close. Now?
170. 120. That's it. 80.
The Sesgold. Quick. Here, listen.
Still asleep?
Yes, almost a coma.
She's all right otherwise?
As far as I can tell, her respiration's normal, pulse just a tiny bit fast, and the reflexes slow, but apparently all right.
David, I feel I must apologize to you.
Apologize? Why?
Well, for doubting you, I suppose.
You'll learn to believe me.
You're very calm in the face of all this. Do you realize that you've performed a miracle?
Miracle? I brought my wife back to me, as I promised her.
It's an unholy thing, but...
We've conquered death. Is that unholy?
Oh, we have conquered death. May God forgive us.
If she'll only wake now.
How long has she been asleep?
Now let me see. 11 hours.
Hasn't spoken at all?
Not since that first scream when she fell asleep.
Have you given her anything?
Just a few drops of brandy.
Have you tried to wake her?
No, but I think I'll try now.
Look, wait a minute. Before you do...
Why?
Well, I hate to keep harping on this business about a soul, David. I realize that this is no place for a philosophic discussion, but I cannot help wondering why Ruth screamed when she first came back to life.
I think there's a logical explanation. After all, it must have been a physical shock.
That's true. It must also be true that there was a great mental shock involved. I think that's why she screamed. And I'm wondering whether there's been a permanent effect on her mind. Oh, as I prefer to think of it, her soul.
Oh, you're simply borrowing trouble, Ed. I've never seen any sign of permanent damage in my other experiments.
Don't forget that Ruth was a human being.
Well, only way to find out. I'm going to wake her.
You're not afraid?
Afraid? Of what? Ruth? Ruth? Wake up, darling. Ruth, dear, it's David speaking. Wake up, dearest. Ruth? Ruth?
Look out!
There, darling. No wonder. It scared the poor girl. Ruth, it's David, dear. I kept my promise, and you're alive again. Oh, you're all right, honey. It's David. You're Ruth. Ruth!
David, what's the matter?
Ruth's... her mind.
No, David, her soul. David, you'd better go for a little exercise now.
I'll stay here with her.
I'll stay while you go out and walk around a bit. You've been at it with her since 3 o'clock. No, it was actually since 8 o'clock last night, without any let-up. Go on. I'll stay.
Ed...
I know, old boy. I'll give it anything I myself if I could undo what we've done, but...
Ed, what can I do?
Well, there may be something. Let's try an experiment when she wakes up again.
What kind of an experiment?
Well, let's see if we can talk to her, get her to say something. If we can get a flicker of intelligence, maybe we can teach her, build her up from a small fragment.
Maybe. It might work. I'm going to wake her up and try it.
Well, not now. Why don't you take a walk, relax a little, and get something to eat while you're out?
Eat? I can't eat. I'm going to wake her. Ruth? Ruth?
David, why not let her sleep?
Oh, she's waking up now. Ruth? Hello, Ruth. Are you waking up?
Go.
Oh, poor child.
Poor child.
There! She repeats after me. A little. Maybe it will work, Ed. Ruth?
Ruth!
David.
David!
It works!
Seems to me, Ruth say, I want a glass of water.
Seems to.
I want a glass of water.
Water.
It's too long for her. Ruth? Say Ruth.
Ruth!
Loves.
Loves.
David.
David.
Ruth loves David.
Ruth loves David.
Ruth loves David.
Ruth loves David. Ruth loves David.
It's working, Ed.
Maybe. But what is she thinking?
I don't know.
Don't know.
Ruth, stop it.
Stop it.
Wait a minute, old man.
Ruth loves David. Ruth loves David. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Ruth loves David. Ruth loves David. Ruth.
This is too much for you. Tired as you are, go on out and take a little walk, and I'll work with her for a while. Your nerves won't take much of this.
I guess you're right, Ed. I can't think anymore. I'll be right back.
Fine. I'll take good care of her and see what I can find out.
Be patient with her.
Don't worry, I will. And you get something to eat while you're out.
All right, I'll try.
Poor guy. Must be really rough on him.
Rough on him.
Ruth? Ruth?
Ruth.
We're kidding ourselves. There's nothing there. She's a parrot.
Parrot.
Look, never mind, Ruth. Ruth! Put down that scalpel!
scalpel. Ha ha ha.
You'll hurt yourself, Ruth. Stay away. The scalpel. Put it down. Think of David.
David!
Ruth!
Ed? Ed?
Here, David.
Ed, for God's sake, what happened?
Ruth. Scalpel.
I'll get something and fix you right up.
Wait. No use.
Now, look.
Doctor. Artery. No hope.
Ed!
Minute or
All
two.
right, doctor. Your diagnosis is correct.
Minute or two left. Ruth's hiding. Watch out. No. No soul. She'll kill you too.
What have I done, Ed? Everything I've done is wrong.
No. Wonderful technique, Doctor. Congratulations. What about soul?
Ed? Ed? Ruth. She's somewhere in the house. What if she gets out with a scalpel in her hands? There's been enough damage. Ruth? Ruth? Basement. I'd better take a gun. Ruth! Ruth! Wish I had more light. Ruth! Ruth! Oh, good gracious. Ruth, give me that scalpel. You'll hurt yourself, Ruth.
Ruth loves David.
Ruth, come back.
Ruth loves David.
Come back. Hello? Yes? Oh, hello, doctor. Well, I've been busy in the lab. No, there's nothing new. Just an experiment. No, like so many experiments, it just didn't work out.
Tonight, the Riverside Township Radio Players presented the Lights Out version of Death Robbery from July 16th, 1947. And here to introduce our crew, Jay Summerfield as the mad scientist David. David's close friend, Tom Duggan. And the poor screaming wife, Nell Brennan. And the man over there that was gurgling and running a laboratory, and what wasn't he doing? Opening, closing doors, running. It's our Marty McNulty. And narrator, I'm Ellie Babka.